So thank you all. I know we have not just people who have returned from like watching this multiple times, but people who joined us yesterday for Jason Wedekine. Um, and Jason from Genghis Kern got us started with a print. We got to see a tour of his shop, and he started the print. There may or may not have been a midnight handoff of some posters to Mr. Rick Griffith, another Denver, Colorado designer and printer. And so, like I said, today we've got Rick Griffith. When I was advertising this on Instagram, I literally did not know what to put because I literally don't know what's going to happen, which is always the beauty of having Rick Griffith visit you. So, because he looks at language and music and politics, and you never know, and it's such an exploration. So, I am going to let everyone know that if you get a little loud, I'll mute you. So if you've magically been muted, that was me. If you do hear any, if there aren't smooth transitions and there is something we can do about it, raise your hand or let me know or chat me over in the side, because I will be happy to make sure that we can have everything work out. So on that note, Rick, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us, and the party's all yours now.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
So I usually put out an agenda for meetings like this. I'm going to spend about 4 minutes sort of giving you guys some backstory. It's not my whole backstory, but it's 4 minutes of backstory. A little bit of foreground work as well. And then I'm going to share with you a bunch of things that are around the studio. Each segment might have me moving around a little bit, but I'll do my best to kind of make it enjoyable. I'm going to do about 20 minutes of talking, and then right when we get to the Q&A stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish typesetting the poster and do the Q&A at the same time. And by the time we're done at about an hour or an hour 10, we should be able to print a poster. I should throw some ink in the press and get it done. So it's just not done being typeset yet. And I'm sorry about that, because when you've got a blank piece of paper or something with one word on it, I don't know if you guys have anxiety, but mine was cooking hard until 3 a.m. And the idea just got to me at like 3:15 when I had one eye sort of like clearly sort of giving up on me. And so I went and got some sleep. But let's get started, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Dude. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, what can I say? We're hoping to be the cure. Historically, I've gotten in the habit, not because I'm good at it, but because I think it's important for everyone to sort of recognize where they are in the United States of America. And I'm letting you guys know that I have raised my family and live in the traditional and ancestral unceded territory of the Ute and the Apache Nation, the Arapaho Nation, the Cheyenne, the Pueblo tribes, the Shoshone tribes, and the Navajo tribes. And this is because I'm an immigrant, I'm a guest on this land, and I really believe that ultimately the way that we honor Native people is by speaking about them so that their stories and their people and their unceded territories are not forgotten. Who I am a naturalized US citizen, I'm an immigrant, I'm a Black male, and I am honestly an ally to anyone who is seeking the opportunity to live well as their best and truest selves. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and many people call me Papa.
Do at the beginning of this whole experience was to make pretty big deal out of the amount of time that we had and how we were going to spend it, learning and having experiences and cleaning, and just sort of this idea that we were going to have lots of time to get something
I don't know. That was weird.
I've really felt like the most important thing to do at the beginning of this whole experience was to make pretty big deal out of the amount of time that we had and how we were going to spend it, learning and having experiences and cleaning, and just sort of this idea that we were going to have lots of time to get some things done. And I very quickly put it in my head that I would be excuse me. I very quickly put it in my head that I would be industrious during this time, and so that's what this is all about. That in my brain during this time, and so flipping that narrative to being unfortunate to being fortunate or lucky, it carries with it a kind of intention to rewrite and to be grateful, but also to be aware of our faculty and our ability and our creative capacity.
So let's pretend we're lucky.
So let's pretend we're lucky seems like a really good way to start it out, because it's an honest idea. I don't think we're fortunate to have this experience, but I think that for a moment to suspend the idea of being unlucky and to stay grateful for what we have. That's sort of why I jumped in front of that bus.
I don't think I'm pretending.
I just think that my feelings about this whole sort of carnage, it's not a good thing. It just isn't.
When I was 16 years old, and it was basically when I first arrived in the United States. The concept of being free for me began pretty early, and I think it's because my parents left the United Kingdom at a time when Margaret Thatcher had encouraged fascists to march the streets, and there was a overwhelming xenophobia in the country of my origin, and my parents decided as immigrants that it would be safer to leave. When I came to the United States, I found myself with a pretty firm home in the punk rock movement in the Washington, D.C. scene in the 1980s. And so this is what I looked like, and ultimately, I think everyone realizes that I have a reverse haircut now.
What's a haircut?
That photo is in DuPont Circle by People's Drugstore, isn't it?
It is, no, that's Burke Lake Park in Fairfax County, Virginia. And you can tell it's Burke Lake Park because of the construction tubes in the background. But nice one though. This is pretty much who I was before Rob existed. And this was my first sort of library experience. I still have a tremendous collection. I'll show it to you in a little bit. This was the record that changed my life. About 3 months ago, and I said, who designed this? Who designed this album cover? Because there's no design credit whatsoever. And they referred me back to the Columbia Records in-house art department. And they said that this small company did album covers for so many people that they were just an in-house department with a funny name. I'm gonna track down the designer of that type one day. Okay.
Kind of how Paula Scher started out.
It is how Paula Scher started out, but she was working for Columbia Records. I was working at a record store in Fairfax County. So I was selling records, not making records. And this is still when I'm 16 years old. I'm gonna show you guys some albums. Let's begin with this one. That record right there was pulled out of Jason's furniture co-working shop, the guy who started the Spanish radio station. So that's number one. Number two, the Nubians of Plutonium, Sun Ra. Number three, William Burroughs and Kurt Cobain collaborating on a record called The Priest They Called Him. Feline by the Stranglers. Alice Coltrane, Journey to Satchidananda. Black Panther Party leader Eldridge Cleaver, Speaking Soul on Wax. Famous DC only music genre, go-go music, Good to Go, and Trouble Funk, and several others. Lounge Lizards, Evan Lurie and his brother, amazing. Arto Lindsay, amazing. Nod, Key Market, British band. Notes band. And finally, the Nation of Unity, 13-point program to destroy America. Those 10 albums totally changed my life. And we'll talk about why and how later. I very quickly established one critical rule for the whole of my life. Never set foot in the library without a question. And you never know when you're going to be in a library, so always have a question. This was my first library. As was this. And just a quick pro tip to all the young people that might be on the line. Don't be afraid to go backwards. There's plenty of material there. And when you think you've gone backwards, go back further. Go to the people that influenced the people that you went back to find. I assure you, there's interesting things there. But I don't have to tell you guys. One of the most important influences in my life so far has been this woman here. Her name is Muriel Cooper, and she founded the Visible Language Lab at MIT, which went on to later be called the Media Lab. One of the things that she said was that if you want me to teach people and to understand on a deep level what visible language is, you need to put me and my people and my students in touch with the means of production. And this is where this concept really emerges in the 1970s. And she arrived at MIT in the 60s. By the 70s, she was moving this Heidelberg GTO into the space at MIT and printing on it. This was my greatest influence so far. She's produced several lectures and several exhibits about messages and means and typography. She's improvised and created and when I say pre-digital, I probably mean proto-digital. And she designed the seminal book on the Bauhaus for MIT Press and established the colophon for the MIT Press. As usual, my greatest role model is a woman. And I continue to be really influenced by lots of beautiful work. And as you guys know, some of you guys know better than others, but every year I buy work from our letterpress community to give to my friends and give to my employees. And some of them have been performed by you. So we're gonna start walking pretty soon around the studio. So I'll do that. I'm gonna try and jump on with my phone in the interim. I'm gonna talk about 5 projects. And 2 of the projects are really easy to talk about just from a picture. I have always said that design is a political act. And I've always said that being successful as a person of color in the United States is also a political act. And so this particular project, I'll never not talk about. It's one of those that makes so much sense. Back when Pope Benedict, the German Pope, took the office of the papalship, one of the early things that he did was remove the censure of a bishop named Bishop Williamson, who was a Holocaust denier. This effectively rippled through the world's community in a way that had deep effects to Jews living everywhere and deep effects to people in the Christian world who were adhering to the regulatory framework of Vatican II. The Vatican II does not allow a pope or a cardinal to be a Holocaust denier, and that's why Bishop Williamson was censured. When he removed the censure, he effectively said that the Holocaust never existed and allowed Bishop Williamson to actually speak that. We amassed a series of resources that's typically given to 7th and 8th graders in the United States into a box that was made out of a man-made material, a plywood, which is an important feature here, and sent it directly to the Vatican, and it arrived and was signed for. And this was a project I did with the Holocaust in Colorado at the University of Denver. We had people sign it and send it, and we had the Pope, and we addressed the Pope with his appropriate title, His Holiness. We wrote the letter very respectfully, but we also printed it on the outside of the box so that people who encountered the box could experience what it was all about. As you can see in the bottom right, there are all of the world's 8 most dominant religions represented on the side of the box. Project number 2, it's sort of an ongoing project. I've had the privilege of designing some type. This is a kind of revived from a Cyrillic type that I found in some drawers of way, way, way back. But I had the privilege of making some type and doing some design and printing for the grandson of Charles Eames. Eames Demetrios is a super interesting person who calls himself a geographer at large and deals with this massive arc, this massive narrative arc called chimeric sphere, and talks about people's orientation towards a history that is deep in the world of fiction. This project, the type and the type form, have been printed, have been etched in brass, and have been sunk to the bottom of the North Sea and several other places around the world. It's actually like in the brass plaques that Eames Demetrios kind of puts all over the world. And so I've had a really great time doing this with him. And it's, at its core, it's a language project, but it's also a tremendous work of fiction. And it's a beautiful thing. Let's walk.
Rick, I'm going to stop sharing your screen, or do you have pictures you're also going to share?
I'm going to do 4 pictures first, and then we'll walk without it. That's a really good call. Thank you.
Yep, sounds good.
This is our storefront. Matter is a multifaceted business, and this is one of the ways that we have been surviving and even thriving during this COVID epidemic, is that we have all this great inventory, and we have a bookstore that is so specific and so detailed and so connected to designers and other thinking persons. It's probably Denver's largest queer books, race and gender books, design books, linguistic books. It's a tremendous collection of things that we love so much. And on the left, you can see one of our jukeboxes, of course. We have stationery, and the stationery products are things that we make in the studio. So all the pads and writing implements are things that we've made here and that we sell to the public, but we also use in our daily practice. And they're easy to find online. If you type in material with 2 T's, that's our stuff. And so I took over part of the storefront in a very Hatch kind of way. We made sure that we brought one of our showstoppers, nice Vandercook 219 AB, into the front, into a small gallery space. And so you can see the press from the bookstore, and you can engage with the press if we're running it. And that was the trick that I really feel was something I learned from working for Jim back in the day when I would do my printing vacations. I would come to Hatch, and Jim was gracious enough to let me work at Hatch for a couple of days at a time, just putting away type or printing on the press in the front, doing a restrike or something like that. And I'm really grateful for that, because that really showed me how big a community we have. And this is the baby. Okay, so let's take a walk around the studio. You can unshare the screen. I'm gonna try, or I can unshare the screen, sorry. Duh.
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm gonna pin myself on this video so I can see what I'm showing you. Okay, cool. So behind me, sorry, Ray, the calendar's still on March. Time is flipping by so fast. But behind me, what you see is a set of rails. Those rails are exhibiting some cards on the top, but ultimately those rails are for working with my sketchbooks, which I will show you what I do. My sketchbooks are generally one type of sketchbook, and they begin with a collage, because a blank page always wants to be treated with a thing that you're confident with. So I always start with a collage and not with writing. But as it goes on, I begin the writing practice inside my sketchbooks, but the books themselves are Japanese bound and therefore extend completely into one full sheet. And that's why behind me on the wall, we built rails so that I could look at my sketchbooks and mine my sketchbooks for ideas after they were complete. And as you can see right there, that's what they tend to look like. There's a or the closet. It's basically floor to ceiling records, CDs, hard drives, whatever. Sorry, Blair Witching. And then this is my office. And as you can see, I'm pretty much got a full DJ setup for kicks and shits and giggles and stuff. And what I've also done is I make mixtapes. Stephanie, if you want to throw up a couple of mixtapes, that's cool. She's going to put some links up there for 2 mixtapes that I made this week. And one of them is based on Star Trek 1, the movie, and the other one is based on Moonraker. And I like to splice in audio from various movies while I'm making my music mixtapes. That's one of my trademark things. Been doing that since I was 16. Let's see. This is the second floor of the building, and out this window is our rooftop garden. And right here is my partner running away. Say hi.
Hello.
That's my partner, Deborah.
Hello. Hello.
63 people you've never met online. There you go. I know that I like Jason's library too. It has a number of books in it that I covet every time I see it. But this is my library, and it has a library ladder, and it goes to the ceiling. And if you're ever looking for obscure emigre magazines that David Shields is quoted in, I've got them. And this is the other side of the library, which is mostly nonfiction, philosophy, and self-help, religion, things like that, metaphysics. And then this is the space that used to have 7 people in it working really hard. And now it has 2 sleeping dogs, myself and Deborah. Let's go downstairs. Right now in that mini gallery is a body of work that we picked up in Portugal. These guys are so amazing, super fun. They work with letterpress letters, but they also are screen printing. And when the paper is too big and the press is not big enough, they take the letters and ink them up by hand and pound them into the paper. And so you can see that the paper is super soft. In fact, it's paper that's made out of clothing that's sourced locally in Portugal. As we come back this way, you can see more things for the store, more prints hanging around. I don't know how many of you guys saw this recent project here that I did with Stefan Bucher in California. We also printed it with glitter. I printed a transparent white and then doused the entire thing in glitter. And so those are available on our store as well. And oh, there's the glitter one. There's a really nice glitter one.
Ooh.
That's really screwed up, I know. Because like we say, glitter is the herpes of crafts. Down here, we also have an area where we shoot, do photography of our work. We also have a shrink wrapping area behind me that's for the stuff for the store and all the back products. Whoa, what's this? This is our laser. And this is our second print shop, which is basically where the CMPs are, back here. And I've got a little project going on this CMP for you guys, which is super fun. Book. Oh, and I forgot to mention, and it's even worse than forgetting. I forgot to be grateful because
That is amazing, Rick. That's absolutely amazing.
oh, it's not over yet. What we
Tell me
do,
more.
tell me more, is that we take this book and then we slide it into the laser. Hit the go button. I'll give you guys a little view of the laser. Woo woo. I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like we're in the future right now.
And then 30 seconds later, what we have is a super fun laser cut Let's Hang 2020 book. And so I've got about 70 of these. I'll send them over to you guys so that you can distribute. Sound good?
We can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that. That's absolutely amazing.
I have kids home from college, so they're perfectly willing to do laser operations for us in the event of an emergency. So yeah, there's that. Kind of like easy to just knock out the little parts of the laser, but combining laser with letterpress, I think that's the new way, right guys? Like as long as we've got these things running around, we might as well make them sort of useful to us in fun and different ways.
Rick, my laser thinks your laser's kind of cute. So maybe if we get them together, we can give everyone a free laser.
That sounds a little bit too much like the Terminator plot.
I think there's a little bromance going on there, you know? Or lasermance, whatever.
You guys have been seeing this project just a little bit, and this project is what we're calling the flashcards project, the meeting flashcards project. And it's so much fun. It's kind of ridiculous. And I would love to open up this to all of us. I think we should be letterpress printing, flashcards for everybody. And I think that you guys should contact me, reach out, and just throw me whatever you've got. I'll send you the template for the laser so that you know that I can cut it out. Work 4 up, and we'll make edition number 2 in the coming months. But I think it would be really fun to have other phrases and other terms to work it out. This project is complete. The people who your projects are in the mail already. Everything's been packaged. You should get it in the next day or 2. It was sent out on Monday. But yeah, this is my favorite fun project of recently. And here's another jukebox. I don't know what kind of music you really like, but there's a little bit of insight into the tunes that I've got on the jukebox. Square Pusher, Kaytranada, Lou Reed, Brian Eno, cool stuff like that.
Al Green?
No Al Green, sorry. And I'm going to give you guys a really, really quick and super, super, crazy tour of where we live. So I'm going to walk it through. My kids are scattering as we speak. This is what we call the family wall. And then Some more art on this wall right here. In the oval piece in the center of the frame is a piece by Louise Bourgeois. I only have a couple of really valuable. And then piece is by Fail.
We're missing your video, kind of, Rick, I think.
Because we type it.
You froze up a little bit, Rick.
Rick, oh no, did he get out of the internet zone? Bum, bum, bum. There is a first time for everything. So, how are y'all doing out in Zoom world? We'll wait. I'm sure he'll come back in.
Yeah, he'll figure it out.
Oh.
How's that?
Yeah, okay, you're back.
Sorry. The space is big enough that I have to switch Wi-Fi. Yeah, that massive typography up there is the walls that I used to do the big significant type exhibit that we did for the Denver Art Museum. And
wait, is this your house or your studio now?
This is my house.
Damn.
He technically changed.
Can I come live there?
This we do have. This is the bookshelves that we built for the cookbooks. So the books are in the side of the shelves.
Damn.
And then there's another jukebox right there. And then there's the upstairs part. And then there's a third upstairs part all the way up there that is for the kids and their creative space. Right behind me, there's my daughter eating her breakfast. And there's another daughter right there. Oh, she's gonna get stuck in the frame. Okay. You wouldn't know, but she wasn't wearing any pants. Just like Amanda.
Dad.
On some of that art in the beginning, could we see it again?
So that's all of that. That's the tour. I mean, there's not much else to do except for field questions, talk a little bit about what we do here, sort of now that COVID's happened. And I'm going to share my screen one more time, ever so briefly, just to give you guys a couple of warm-ups in the sense of there is stuff to talk about. Hold on. A little bit more video. Every Thursday, we get together and just run the press. Sometimes it's a small project, sometimes it's a little project. The idea of running the press, every Thursday is just so that I can hold a community here that is interested in printing and also just be like in my own zone once a week, know that I was going to fire up the press. It's become important. It's now, Thursday is not the only day I fire up the press. It's pretty much every day these days, but it's become so important to me that we're now hosting online every Thursday between 5 and 7. And it's a little bit more like other people get involved and other people get to share as well. But, you know, that's pretty much the whole thing right there. I'm sure that there are many, many gaps. So I'm sorry for not telling you everything about me, but I'll take questions. We can hang out and talk while I typeset the last part of this, this poster.
I think that's great. That was really wonderful, Rick. Thank you.
So, hey, Rick, I like shop. How big is that epilogue that you're running?
That's the 2640. That's the
Oh,
big
wow.
one.
How often do you use that in your work?
We use it a lot for signage. In fact, late at night, I remember making Jason a laser cut sign like at 2 o'clock in the morning because his fabricator fell through. We use it a lot. It's paid for itself a couple of times over, for sure.
Wow.
I don't use it for making wood, and I think that I may have arrived at the point where I would take pointers from Scott and pointers from Tony on how to use it to make some sorts for myself, but I'm not super stressed out about that because I know that, you know, we're in this together and really helping build a library of patterns or of specimens for those guys to work with is probably just as good a use of my energy and time as me coming up with it by myself. So I like to think of it now as a community of people with lasers and tools that if we can just find the person who's most passionate about making sorts and use that, that'll be fine too. I don't need to do that. But I do make plates. This is one of those plates. I don't know if you guys, for new impressions, did projects with, where one part of it was wood type and the other plate was annotating the wood type. And so this is an example of one of my plates. It's made out of a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch MDF mounted type high or close to type high on a MDF block.
Rick, you
Yes,
impressed me with your laser, and I didn't even know you could do halftones. Is you've always, to me, been considered the expert in our area in using the laser to make halftones to print with on letterpress. Is that something you might explain to people, or I get asked and I keep saying, well, Rick knows, I don't know. He's much better than me.
Well, I think the real conversation about halftones is really the age-old conversation about, you know, fidelity and resolution. You know, I think that the technique of making halftones on the laser is one that really depends on the quality of the image. There is no golden rule. You have to experiment, you have to be willing to do small segments, and then you have to be willing to look at images in a particular way that helps you get to your goal. If I was being paid to come up with a halftone plate for a particular client, I'm certain that I would do it 2 or 3 times before it was complete, just based on how to manage expectations. Sometimes you want to go with a darker ink just so that you can fill some of the spaces, a little bit heavier of an ink application, and sometimes you want to starve the press back. You know, it's got as much to do with press operation as it does have to do with how you make your halftone on the laser, what the depth of the etch is, what the height of your rollers are, and so on and so forth. It's actually it's a significant amount of calculus that you go into it with. I know that the guys like you who make type high resources for people can make it in a certain way, but because I don't see it from that perspective, like it has to be type high, I'm the person who just goes, well, every image wants to have a certain amount of fidelity. Every image wants to feel the way that it wants to feel to be effective, especially in its color and if it's overprinting or underprinting. My feeling is that Brad Vetter probably has nailed the halftone in a much more sort of specific and easy to use and sort of durable way than I've ever done. Mine tends to be, bye Laura, mine tends to be like sort of more specific and more intentional, and certainly just not very production friendly until it's done. So it's
What kind of line screen are you using? Dots per inch.
It depends. I think I've got projects that are 25 lines per square inch, and I've got projects that go up to 100, and that can be still etched on the laser. Depends on how many hours or days you've got for the laser to do its thing, right?
Okay. On that piece that you just showed, Rick, the larger piece that you did for Hamilton, was that whole MDF block cut, or did you apply those on the block later and cut them out individually?
So we cut the 1/4-inch MDF sheet. We marry it to a bigger block. We use the negative as a template for where to glue it down. We take out the parts, put some spray mount in, Super 77, apply the parts, and then lift off the negative template so everything's in the right space.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, you use, as I said before, you use the template or the negative space to help register, especially if it's something that's very close registration. And sometimes I even tack them down with small little finish nails, just a couple, to keep them from moving at all, because the registration is so important.
Exactly.
I learned that from Brad Vedder.
Yeah. I learned it by delegating it to the guy who used to work for me, who did all of my laser operation stuff. And I was like, oh, that's pretty smart. And then, of course, I do it all the time myself now.
How far ahead are you thinking? Do you have the next 2 or 3 projects figured out, or are you going to finish these first?
I got to finish some of this stuff first. This is some of the type. I didn't even show you guys my type stuff, but this is my new drawer labeling. And of course, I collect a lot of stuff. The tool here that I have on here is just a little bit of scratch paper that's attached to the wall there. I pretty much have 4 projects waiting to happen at all times, and if I can get them to be production ready, I'll just put one of my kids on it, because the girls have been operating the CMP since they were 6 years old. Rowan just finished her undergrad at Parsons School of Design, so she knows about lasers. So she operates the laser for me. And so I just put the kids on projects, try and get them to be production ready.
That's great.
Well, I'm dying to see what he does with the print.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the rest of the type sorted. It might take me a minute longer, but
Rick, I love how he showed me those designs of his type case labels, and I was like, oh yeah, that's really nice. Yesterday, trying to find that X-rated twofer, those would have helped, because it was in the Stymie 48 case, which there's no Stymie 48 in there. I was like, damn it.
Yeah, I think Stymie 48 is from now on going to be code for pornography.
Right.
Letterpress.
The XXX plates that you have in your collection.
I was pretty amazed at what's the word I'm looking for? Everyone wanted it to be more than it was. I think that thing is awesome, that rudimentary X cut.
Yeah, You didn't explain that it was so rudimentary, though. You were like, I have this pornographic block, and you got us all excited.
Yeah. Sorry, those of you that didn't catch it yesterday. It's on my Instagram, and it's like I just imagine this kid carving that, like some 15-year-old who'd been working for 5 years already. Like the boss leaves, he flips over an X and goes, "Oh, I'll show him." But then Eric Woods said it was he. Oh man, I'm totally hijacking, but Rick's working while we're doing this. Eric was like, "I love me a masturbation cut," and I'm like, "Dude, we had this discussion. I don't know if it's that or something else. I think it's what do you call? I can't tell if it's a man or a woman."
I might stop this conversation. I love you all dearly. You're gonna have to continue it at the randomly during Ways Goose.
Sorry.
And I know most of you don't have a laser, but more and more I'm finding as I do workshops around the country that more and more book art centers, college art programs, architecture departments are getting these smaller lasers. I was just talking to the people from Full Spectrum yesterday in Las Vegas, and how the pricing is dropping and the technology is dropping. The technology is more available for more people. And some of you asked me about Glowforge, and I don't know anything about Glowforge, except it did work out after all. But Daniel Snyder's on here, I noticed, and he was working with the stamping machine at Hamilton on borders. And I was building one. I'd come and researched it and measured it, and I had bought 50-pound weights to make my own flywheels. And then once I got access to the laser, I went, wow, I'm going to go to borders. And I do a lot of borders right now, but everything is laser. And I really appreciate how in the world you guys stamped those in the past with the stamping machines, when it's so simple and to make very, very intricate designs. But the knowledge of how to make the borders with the stamping machine has been lost in general. But just amazing if you just look at the type you have and appreciate how 100 people knew how to do that 100 years ago. So
well, and Daniel, can you share a little bit about what you learned in that process, just a bit? I'm so glad to see you're here.
Oh, sure thing. Yeah. I'm going to tie it back to Muriel Cooper, because I heard this is going to be a terrible paraphrase of what Rick said, but the importance of having the presence of the production system in the context of the creativity. So that's kind of the path that whole project took me down was, and the thing I like to share with people about it is how much the design and the creative process derives from the mechanical properties of the machine and its limitations and the materials and the rhythm and all of that sort of thing. So does that cover it a little bit?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And if you guys don't know, so Daniel, I know you touched on it, Scott, but Daniel Schneider, we have the die stamping that was used to make borders at Hamilton. And Daniel, when you came, no one knew. We said, oh, we have an idea of how this works, but we didn't really. I mean, you spent your thesis was on it, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
And Daniel, you explain what your degree is in?
Oh, sure. It's an industrial archaeology, which is a study of the industrial past based on its material remains. And so, yeah, the die stamping machine was like a beautiful thing that fell into my lap on a tour of Hamilton one time when I was looking for a thesis project. I don't have a good segue here, but this will bring it full circle back into the world of laser cutters and that sort of thing. Because I've been seeing like on the Hamilton newsletter and such, the book that I'm guessing Rich Kegler put out. I need to get in touch with him about that. But it's the niche type set or border design set with by Marion Bantjes. And it had, was quite a bit more intricate than stuff that I had done previously, and she made it in a digital realm. And so bringing that into the material realm was quite a challenge, and it ended up depending on finding machinists who did work for NASA and could cut it with this like super high-tech CNC machine. And so that was so far I've only successfully made one glyph out of about 8 that she's done, but it was you know, that's a taste of like interdigitating the digital and the mechanical for me. So that brings us back to Laserland.
So I have a question. I've been cutting, you know, poster work and some fonts with my CNC. Is anybody doing CNC work, or is most people doing laser?
I have a CNC as well. It's just not here. And our CNC plates are like yours, much, much bigger. And the work I was doing on CNC was for the wood type shelves that we made and the wood type walls that we made for the exhibition we did in 2012. So I quickly went, in fact, I started on CNC for plates because the goal for me was to go big and to have really big, nice backgrounds that had great texture. But since then, because of my sort of goals for self-sufficiency, I've decided to like focus more on the smaller stuff and to be a writer who makes work with the letterpress as an extension of a writing practice, not as a way of making, in quotes, too many pretty things, but as a way of kind of taking my writing practice and trying to make more of it accessible and trying to make it more provocative. So I used to do CNC stuff, and I appreciate how good you've gotten at it. And now I'm like sort of more focused on words and 6-line and 5-line and 4-line type, because for some reason I can never have too many words on a page.
Yeah.
I've learned every time I've gone to a Hamilton Ways Goose, at least there, and people knew I was making type with my pantograph. People, and I don't know the names, I default to you that do know their names. There are several very beautiful printing people who are working with CNC mills. Rob Miller, I know, several people have developed software for it and tracing, and the Z-axis coming up, if you know how it works, to get a square corner on that cross stroke of the H. And people call me like I'm supposed to know it, and I don't. So I try to help where I can, but maybe some of you know the names of the people that are really big CNC type making people out there.
So I'm a very small CNC type making person. I used a CNC router at my local makerspace, and the program VCarve is fantastic for making types because it has built into it the possibility of telling it that you're using 2 different mill ends, one that's flat on the bottom and one that's conical. So it will do the big general cutout with the flat one, and then it will go into those corners, and it knows how far down to go with the cone. So it barely touches down in the corner and then goes farther, giving you a kind of chamfered edge, I guess it would be, as it goes down. And it works great. And I've done it pretty small scale on PVC and on maple. And it's amazing. It's just really hard working in a shared space with people who leave everything a mess and break things and stuff like that. But
yeah,
if I had my own, it would be awesome.
And one of the big things that's available in a lot of maker spaces in different cities is a shop bot, and they come in 3 different sizes, but it'll do up to a full sheet of plywood. But the shop bots make beautiful type cutouts.
A ShopBot is what I use, and I'm not sure if the VCarve program comes with it, but for type, it's way better than Fusion 360, or it's specifically for sign makers. But it's a wonderful program, and they have great tutorials online. So I would recommend that for anyone who wants. And it's a ShopBot that I'm using it on.
And what she's talking, the small detail she's talking about is when you go, it's like with the pantograph. When you go around with the pantograph and cut, even with a small cutter, when you get to that crossbar of the H, you still are going to have a radius. Well, the CNC machines with a tapered cutter in it allow you to actually, the machine pulls up and gives you a square corner with the round bit. So it's very unique. And I'm sorry, I don't know the names of the people at Waste Uses that have showed me. I was so impressed. What's his name in Switzerland?
Doffy.
Doffy did his master's thesis and has some of that information in his master's thesis. He's exceptionally good at using that kind of equipment.
I did pull out 5 books for you guys to know that we have in our bookstore. And it did remind me, because we have our good friend Dafi Kuna's book, True Print. We have our good friend, Mr. Alan Kitching's book, A Life in Letterpress. We have the most recent American Wood Type, 1828 to 1900s, with the preface by Mr. David Shields, I believe. We do have the massive, beautiful monograph on Muriel Cooper. Sorry. We do have this. It is a beautiful book, and it talks directly to her experience at MIT and her philosophies. And then we do carry, of course, Chris Fritton's itinerant printer book and Muriel Cooper's seminal Bauhaus text for MIT Press, amongst other books that some even made, like Louise Sandhouse's book on.
You're a little quiet, Rick.
On what?
Oh, you're quiet. I think you just had your finger over the mic. Keep going.
Oh, sorry. Of course, our good friends have made historically. And you can just go online and browse our book section. There's some weird stuff there too, really weird stuff. Like zines from printmakers in Paris who have letterpress, intaglio, screen printing, all in the same place. Amazing people. And they're called the Paris Print Club. And then we are one of the 5 US people that carry Unit Editions, which is the book publishing out of the UK. One book that I love so much, because I got my start in this, is this Letraset book that they made. So gorgeous. And then there's a book on Herb Lubalin. And then there's a book on Michael Johnson, who works over with the Archetype Press and at in California. His book on Octavo is also a book that we carry that was published by Unit Editions. We have a ton of these books, and we have the NASA standards manual, of course, for those space freaks like myself. I'm going to take about 5 minutes and lock this up. I'm actually almost done, so it's kind of cool.
And I am going to say, I know we're at 109, so we're going to stick around, of course, so we can see what Rick finished. I know some people have to feed kids or go to other meetings or do other things, but we will be here and we'll be around. So I do want to do, while we still have quite a few people on, I do want to say thank you so much, Rick. It was really wonderful to see your work and see what books you read and see what you're up to and see lasers. So thank you.